Lovely pictures here of it was Gigi Bonta. They've got a nice big bin in their factory here at Foxdale Court, where they then separate the organic waste and put it straight into. We have these composting machines at Foxdale Court. Put them straight in, and within it takes about a 6-week period, and we're converting this into this. So this is the process. And so I'd like to just provide you with a little bit more information on composting, just to sort of zero in on that. Because I just find it, I find it so fascinating. To me, it feels like a huge magic show almost. You know, how does this, ta-da, you know, turn into this? So how that happens is that we have these little things, we have these little microorganisms. So I've got a few of them, I've brought them, a few of them in for you today. So we've got a nice little wriggly worm over here. Let's see if he can stay comfortably in my hand. So this is a little beetle grub. This will turn into a little beetle. And then we've got a nice little worm here for you today, a little earthworm. And then there's bacteria as well. So literally there's bacteria all around us. There's bacteria on our hands. There's bacteria on this pineapple head. There'll be bacteria on this cabbage. And these are microorganisms. And so in a nutshell, what compost is when these microorganisms eat away at this material, when they defecate, when they make a poo, their poo is compost. That's basically what it is. So if you want to speed up the process of making compost, and I've sort of been at home, we've been making compost for quite some time, but it used to take forever. It used to take like a year or 2 years to make compost. And so I've been doing quite a bit of research on it. How can we speed up this process? And basically, you need to look after your microorganisms. And a microorganism, they're a living being. What does any living being need? They need air, they need warmth, they need water, and they need food. And the food that these microorganisms need, it's a green material and a brown material. So any green material, which is a nitrate, it's a living material, and a brown material, it could be, it's a carbon, it's a dead material. So things like leaves. It's also things like paper scraps. So this cardboard box is a carbon. It's a brown material, and we use these in our compost heap also at home. You can literally tear up a cardboard box. Also your newspapers as well. You can tear them up, put them straight into your organic waste, and they will eat away at it. And that's what they need. They need both greens and they need browns to speed up the process. So at Foxdale Court, we basically we layer it. We use food waste and we use sawdust, which is our brown material, and we use these composting machines. And we set food and sawdust, and then we seal it. We seal it, and then that creates a nice warm environment for your microorganisms. There's a few holes on the side of these big composting machines, and then we rotate them on a daily basis, which then provides air. So they've got their air. There's a lot of moisture inside here, so they've got the water, and literally that's all we do. They've got their food, they've got their warmth, they've got their water, and you've got the microorganisms inside there, and it makes compost. So, but we have another development called Foxdale Forest, which is where I live. It's just down the road from there, and we do a lot of composting there. And what we do is so there's some pictures over here. We do something very, very simple, which is what you can literally just do at home. You make a heap like this. It's a pile, and we start with our first layer are little twigs like this, and we break up some twigs and little branches. That's our first layer. That's a brown material. Then if the gardener has been out mowing the lawn, or if somebody's been weeding, we then put some weeds or some grass clippings on top, which is a green material. Then you want to put a brown material on top, so we'll take some more leaves, put those on top, and once we have that layer, then we start putting food on. So every day at 4 o'clock, when we take our food bin and put it on the compost heap, we put the food on top. We then put leaves, then we put food and leaves until we have a heap about this big. We then put about 20 liters of water, which is 1 bucket full of water, or if you have a hose pipe, you can just spray it down with a little bit of water, and then we cover it. And we cover it, you can see pictures here, we cover it just with whatever you have available, just to create that warm environment. So we had some shade cloth, which we weren't using. We put the shade cloth on top. Sometimes we have some empty sacks, which we're not using. Put a sack on top of it. But if you have milli-meal sacks, you can put a milli-meal sack on top of it. If you have empty cement bags, you can put an empty cement bag on top. It's literally just to have that warm environment. And I like to think about composting almost like a party. You've got these little microorganisms, and they've got what's the best way to create a party? You've got food, you've got water, it's like some booze over there, and it's nice and warm, nice sheltered environment, and then these little microorganisms, they just kind of go wild, and they're just eating at all of this material, your green and your brown material, having a great time, and pooing and defecating, and then basically when all of this is finished, it's like the party's over, and they move on. They move on to the next place where they're having a party. But also it's sometimes I also like to think of it as cooking a soup. That's another way. And you put all these ingredients inside, and then you put the lid on top and you let it cook. But what you don't want to do is put the lid on top and then say half an hour later put some more ingredients inside, because then they're not going to be cooked. So once you put your whether it's your shade cloth or your sack on top of that heat, that's it. You put that lid on top of your soup, on top of your stew, and you leave it to cook. And but then once a week you open it up, and you can take a fork and you can mix it all up. Give it a nice little mix, because you want that air to get moving around there. Add a little bit more water and put the shade cloth on top. And if you do that during the rainy season, we're making compost within 4 weeks. Literally, all these items within a 4-week period will be completely unrecognizable. They'll have turned into compost. We find during the dry season it takes about 6 weeks to make our compost, but that's a very quick turnaround period. And literally that compost, it literally does cook. So after a week, when you open it up and you put a fork inside, if you put your hand inside there, you'll literally see steam coming out of the compost. And compost will go up to a temperature of 70 degrees Celsius when it's at its peak. And then as it gradually starts to cool down, it's like the party is cooling down, the booze is finishing, people are now starting to go home. And once it gets back down to room temperature, then your compost is finished. So you can also get compost thermometers and put them inside, but literally you just put your hand inside there, and it gets so hot that you could literally boil an egg inside your compost, and then you know that your compost is working. You're making really good compost. Other things you can add to your compost is ash. From if you've been cooking on a fire, that's a fantastic carbon material, adds great nutrients. If you have chicken manure, we have some horses, we add our horse manure to the compost. If you have pigs, you can add their manure. But I'd say add a couple of shovelfuls of that, and it's a great brown material. It's your carbon material, so you add it as one of the layers in your little compost heap. Personally, I'm a very keen gardener. I love getting my fingers dirty, green fingers and green and brown fingers. And these are just some pictures of my own vegetable garden at home. And you can see that this whole journey from recycling your paper to your plastic to also your composting, whether you're doing it at home in your farms, it also literally just it's a way of life. And you get so used to it. Once you have your separate little bins or even little boxes within your home, and it becomes second nature. It becomes so easy. When you peel your potato, the potato peels go straight into the food bin. If you cut your rape, the ends of the rape that you're not using go straight into the food bin. At the end of the day, you take it out to your compost heap. Any spare pieces of paper that you're not using, like till receipts or boxes that are wet and you can't recycle them when they're wet. You can put that into your compost as well. I also use in my own home, I mean, you can see here it's still got a label on, it says tomato sauce. I'm a very compartmental person, and I use all of these little things for making tomato sauce, freeze them. My children's lunchbox is an old ice cream tub, and so literally you don't have to buy a lot of extra Tupperware. You can literally just use some of the things from your own home. Literally yesterday, I was doing some tomato seedlings, and I was using these little trays. Now, sometimes if you buy fruit, you get them in these little trays, and so I was putting this beautiful sort of compost inside here and using them as trays for a nursery. So you can, it's a real lifestyle. Lots of these things can just be reused within your own homes. If you have children, get them involved in this whole process. I've got a 5-year-old son and a 3-year-old daughter. They're in the gardens all the time, picking their own food. If I accidentally, or someone in the household accidentally puts waste in the wrong bin, I've got my son telling people off, or telling me off as well. So please, it really is a way of life, and it also should start when children are this young, and then it's literally just second nature. I've also had a bit of a journey of expanding my vegetable garden. So I've had a goal of, I've been trying to be completely self-sufficient in terms of the veggies from our house, and it's quite interesting to see how much we all consume and eat, and actually how difficult it is to be completely self-sufficient. But I've been sort of working on this, just expanding our vegetable garden. So I just wanted to share some pictures with you, and then I've sort of had this dream of having like a greenhouse with an outdoor kitchen and being able to literally just pick vegetables from the garden, cook and eat. And so it's taken us about 2 years. Been a nice slow gradual project, and our whole garden has drip irrigation. It is extremely water wise, and we've now got this beautiful little greenhouse where I do my tomato seedlings, and there's also a little kitchen inside of there, and we love this space. So it really is, for me, it's just really a whole lifestyle, like full circle. And then also at Foxdale Court, on something different, we have had a petition to create a cycling lane along Zambezi Road. It's been fantastic to see more pedestrian lanes being built along the road, but we would still love to see more people cycling to work and walking to work, but it needs to be in a safe environment. So that's just something we're working on the side. But otherwise, thank you so much for coming through today, and go wild. Thank you. We're open to all questions, and then afterwards we'll go for a small walk just to see our waste management area. Thanks very much, everyone. So questions, any itching questions, burning questions? Yeah, thank you so much for that question. It was about glass, and it's a great question. We used to have Kapiri glass up in Kapiri, and we'd make our own glasses and sort of glass mugs as well. I think that closed down maybe 25 years ago, so a very long time. Unfortunately, it hasn't reopened. So that is really needed on a national level. What we have done, just on a smaller scale, I don't have a sample here, or maybe there's we have some in the gym over there, but we've just worked with some local artisans, and they've taken glass bottles and have cut them and have turned them into glasses that you can then drink from. And I think they're fantastic, nice little colors. Nobody knows that it's no one even thinks that it's a glass bottle. I've actually worked with some of these artisans. We've turned it into a very nice wine glass, worked on the design. I think Paul is just getting one of them for us. So this is something that you can do on I'd say on a sort of a smaller scale. Just what you can do with the glass bottles. This is great little glass there, made out of, I think that's sort of like a beer. Is it what, Castle Light, Castle Light beer bottle. So that's something that can be done. But yes, this is needed on a national level. I mean, you need the factories like Kapiri Glass to be able to accommodate, to collect the amount of glass that we're all consuming. But literally, also you'd also have to think about just what you can do within your own homes. And so with your own bottles, if you can store your oil inside there, you can use them on a smaller scale within your own homes. But yeah, I was speaking with a lady, and she was quite interested in actually starting up a small business in making these glasses and distributing them locally. But yes, it's a huge issue. What we also did, I guess, on a smaller scale, we're involved in property development and construction. So in one of the houses that we built, we then crushed the glass. We got green glass bottles, crushed them on one side, and we got white glass bottles and crushed them. And then we did terrazzo floors. So if you've seen those old terrazzo floors, it's normally done with crushed stone, but we used crushed glass in the floors. And so that was one way in which we could then use a fair amount of glass in floors. So a few sort of creative ways in which you can use it, but absolutely needed on a more national scale. But I think it's great that we now have, with the new government, we have the Ministry of Green Economy. They are very proactive, and we would love to see, also just as a community, we can put pressure, on what also has to happen on a national level. And if it is in a nation's national interest as individuals, if you also just voice up and say, come on, let's get some of these factories reopened and let's start doing more about it, then there can be that collective movement for more recycling. So thank you very much for that question. But we also just start with, it's also just even a small difference makes a big difference. So if we can also just also focus on your paper, your plastic, just some of the things that are more easily recyclable locally, it makes a big difference as well. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that. Thank you so much for that question. It's a great question. So here at Foxdale Court, because it's a commercial building, we use the sawdust as our brown material, as our carbon material. We've used these composting machines, which I'll be honest, they are a bit expensive to buy, but literally it's just a drum. But that's what we do here because we've wanted to seal it so that we don't have any rodents coming in. But literally within your own homes, you can make compost like this, and then you don't need to use the sawdust. You can use any brown material. So in my home, we mainly use leaves as our brown material. We don't actually use any sawdust when we make our compost. This is the carbon that we use. We use that, and then we also use any paper, cardboard pieces which we're not using. We just tear it up, till receipts, like a paper as well, like this. Like if you used a napkin, you can tear it up and put it into your organic bin, into your food bin, and the microorganisms, they love this stuff. They'll eat away at it because they eat greens and they eat browns. They eat the nitrates and the carbons, and that's the food that they need in order to make compost. So yes, within your own homes, you don't need to use sawdust, just any brown material. And literally, I mean, the leaves are free. And we're normally trying to get rid of them in that August, September period when they're all falling off the trees. So you can just keep them all in a big pile. And that's what we do at home. And I kind of call it our pantry. So, because the leaves aren't falling off the tree all year round. They're only falling off during that August and September. So keep them. And then you've got a nice stock of leaves for the rest of the year, which you then use to layer your greens and your brown material. Okay, thanks for just highlighting that. Okay, any other questions? So that's a great question, and unfortunately that is what is happening constantly. I mean, we've done our best where we've got the different bins. They're literally all over Foxdale Court. We do this training on an annual basis, and we're filming it today. I mean, we've got the labels. We've put pictures underneath the labels as well to make it easier, and we've used the universal colors as well for the different associations. Food is green and paper is blue, plastic is yellow, the other is grey, to make it easier for people to use the bins. But I mean, on a day-to-day basis, I'll be honest, most people aren't using the bins. So there's a lot of waste that comes to the waste management area, and as you say, when it is contaminated, it goes into our other bin, and we'll go down to our waste management area, and you'll see the paper that is in the paper cage and the plastic that's in the plastic cage, and then you'll see the other waste, and in the other waste you'll see pineapple heads, and you'll see plastic, and you'll see cardboard, and unfortunately that's all going to the dump site, and we're having to pay a truck to come in and load that quatter onto the dump truck and take it out to the landfill. So literally it all happens. It's you all have the power to create that difference and to be able to recycle. And if the separation doesn't happen, it comes to the waste management area, and there's not that much you can do because the paper is wet, because there's been a pineapple head sitting on it for some time, and so the paper recycling company won't pick it up, and so if you look at the other waste, there's a huge amount of waste inside there that could be recycled, but we're not able to recycle it because it is contaminated. We do have a full-time waste manager in our waste management area, but it's not his job to rummage through the waste and try to sort through it. That is our responsibility, our personal jobs, and it starts with inside Pick and Pay at the farmers market, inside Chi Chicken, inside Panarottis, and it's really easy to do. Once you have your bins, you put your food in here, you put your plastic in this bin, you put your paper in this bin, and then it can be separated. But we just take it step by step by step by step, and Rome wasn't built in a day. So we're now in our 11th year of this, and it's comes down to constant training, talking to people, awareness. But when we did take our team to the dump site and then onwards to the plastic recycling company, you sort of felt like the penny dropped, and people went, they had that aha moment, and it's like, oh, okay, this is why Angelica has been banging on about why we have 20 different of these huge bins all over Foxdale Court, and spend quite a lot of money on this whole process, because it really makes sense. But yes, on the compost, I mean, I'm constantly pulling out little plastic bags from the compost that we make. Also in my own vegetable garden, because at Foxdale Forest down the road we're composting for about 10 other households, plus we've got a clubhouse, and there's just loads of people that in the food bin, so maybe they'll scrape their leftover chicken pieces into the food bin, but then there's a little bit of plastic and they just shove it all inside there. And yes, we will spend some time picking out some of the plastics, but you don't catch all of them. And then we have another issue called microplastics, which is a big issue. And literally inside all of our bodies, there's plastic inside of our bodies, because these plastics, they do start to break down into really, really, really small, very, very fine pieces, which are called microplastics. And the microplastics are then, they're getting into our soil, because somebody's been composting, or it's literally just been lying on the ground and it's breaking down, and it's getting into the soil, it's getting into the water that we're drinking. The plastic is breaking down there, and it's in the air that we're breathing. And it's also down, if we can separate properly, can go to a plastic recycling company, we'll reduce the amount of those microplastics that we have all over. So that's also just another huge issue, which we can sort of help to tackle by separation. So it is just, step by step, day by day, and trying to share this message to as many people, so that people say, that makes sense actually. And start implementing it within their own homes. Any other questions? Otherwise, I think it might be time to see our waste management area. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. So we'll just take a very short walk over, and we'll see our waste management area. Great. So great. So we're here in our waste management area. So you can see this is where we're making compost. If you have a look, those are some bins where the compost is completed, and so this is where we're using the sawdust, and we're layering food waste with sawdust, food waste being a green material, sawdust being a brown material, layering it, and then literally after a 6-week period it turns into compost. But when the bin is completely full, we then seal it. We use some locks. We put a little padlock on it so that no one then puts additional waste inside it, and then we turn it on a daily basis to allow air just to provide that circulation and for air ventilation. And you can see these drums, they do have some holes on the side so they allow air in, and it's literally the natural process of decomposition that then makes this beautiful compost that you can see here, which we then use in our gardens at Foxdale Court. So really lovely completed compost over there, full of nutrients, really no smell, safe, very safe to touch. You can see the plastic waste over here, a lot of it coming out of Pick and Pay supermarket and the eateries. This is nice clean plastic which we can then sell onwards to plastic recycling companies. And you can see the paper waste here as well. But then if you come a little bit closer, I think there's a good social distance here. But you can see this is the other waste, and in the other waste there's plastic bottles. You'll see there's some food waste over here, some onion peels over here, and this waste, if this plastic bottle was in a plastic bin, and if that food waste was in that food waste bin, and you'll definitely see there's some paper inside here as well. If that was in the paper, it could be recycled. But because we've still got tenants and people from the public who aren't separating the waste, it ends up here, and this is kwacha money that we're then loading onto trucks and sending off to the dump site, and we're not able to recycle it. So please, the message which I'd like to share with you, it's separate from the source, because then we can recycle the waste rather than sending it off to the dump site. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. So You've been an incredible audience. You can take your time to have a little look around, and just wishing you a fantastic 2022. Thank you. Yes, got a question.
I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank you very much for sharing this very important information. Some of what we didn't know about it. I know that you have learned and you have explained in detail. We are so grateful and pray that as we go back to our homes, we are going to start from there. Even where we are trading from, maybe starting from where we are. Then we are going to spread the same to where we are going. And we pray that this is not going to end here, that the information will spread even to those other people who haven't learned anything. Maybe as it goes slow, it will make an impact in the life of shopping Zambians. Thank you so much for your time and for this program. Keep it up.